Hi, I'm Chad, and today I want to share with you one of my techniques I use for turning efficiently. So I have an art show coming up in about a week, 10 days from now, and I need to make some smaller, less expensive items to help fill out my booth. You know, normally I'm doing larger, more complicated, carved, colored things, so they're considerably more expensive. I want to have some pieces that are more accessible to people, that are, giftable, things like that. And one thing that I like for that are weed pots, or twig pots, which is something that were popularized by Rudy Osolnik. And he's a fellow Kentucky woodturner. Obviously he's passed many years ago, but I've always been a big fan, and I try to have something that kind of represents a little bit of Rudy and a little bit of Kentucky woodturning history in my booth. So today I'm going to share with you one of my strategies for making those as efficiently as possible, and I hope you'll stick around and check it out. So a lot of times when I make weed pots, I like to use my offcuts and scraps and things like that. It's a great use for them, and it makes perfectly fine weed pot, but it's not the most efficient way really, because you're having to mount and unmount and round out all these pieces, and they may not all be consistent shape and size, so you're always having to make these little adjustments, and it's just not an efficient way to do it when you need to crank out 50 or 60 of them and in a short time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 3 at once. So I've got a 3x3x12 piece of cherry here, and it is kiln dried. So I'm just going to mount that between centers, and on my tool rest you can see I've got some lines marked here. So these white lines here, this is a 1 foot, a 12-inch tool rest. So I've put these at 4 inches apart, these white lines. So I'm just going to make a groove and divide this into 3 pieces visually. And we're going to start at this end and work our way to this end, making 3 different designs. I'm going to try to do this today without the dust collector, so y'all don't have to listen to that, and so maybe I can talk through a couple of the steps along the way. But I'm going to start out my blank between centers, and I'm going to use my roughing gouge to turn this into a cylinder. I have a selection of spindle gouges and some parting tools, things like that over here that I'll be using. But first step is to rough this into a cylinder. I'm going to run this at about 1400, 1500 RPM. In order to leave a little more strength along the length of the piece, I'm going to make the top of the first one point this direction, the top of the second one point this direction, and the top of the third one point this direction, so you have a little more stability at the most narrow parts by having it against the tailstock and against the headstock and then on the closer end of the headstock. So that's my theory, but it usually works pretty well. First one's basically done. Actually, I'm going to reshape the first one just a bit because I can make it a little bit taller. basic shape of all of them. And now I'm going to sand them, but I am going to use the dust collector for this part because there's already plenty of dust in the air. So I'm going to power sand these as much as I can. I'm going to start with 180 grit, then do 220, and then 320, and that should probably be good enough to get a nice looking finish on them. I am going to turn my speed down to under 1,000, probably like 800, 700, 800, something like that. Got one more quick step to do, or two more I guess. So I'm going to head over to the belt sander and the drill press. So that pretty much does it for our 3 weed pots. All we have to do at this point is any little bit of touch up, any little broken off bits of grain or something, clean up the openings of the holes, things like that. And I have a table of about 2 dozen more over there that I need to do the same thing to. So I'll just put these with those, do it all at once since we're talking about efficiency with this process, and then I will finish them with these little things because they're so durable, and also because several I have are spalted. I'm going to put them all in a plastic bag and then just put my oil in there and just work them around and let them soak it in there. That way the spalted ones can soak in a little more oil. I can do them all at once, so it's a lot more efficient than picking up each one and wiping it down, then wiping off excess and whatever. So that is usually my preferred way for at least doing the first coat of oil on them. But if you do that, do not take that plastic bag and wad it up with oil in it and put it in the trash. It will catch on fire. So oil, think saturated oil. Oil heats up as it cures and it can spontaneously combust. Never leave oily rags piled up or oily sawdust, anything like that. So what you do with the bag, turn it inside out, wipe off a bunch of oil with paper towels, lay those out flat, lay the bag out flat so the heat can dissipate as the oil's curing, because the last thing you want is a fire. I know somebody who's had it happen and it was not pleasant for him. I hope you maybe enjoyed the project, learned something, maybe it gave you an idea for a way you can do some other project that you do a little more efficiently. But wood turning isn't all about efficiency. If you're trying to make money doing it, sure, but otherwise do it the way you enjoy doing it. Do it the way that's most relaxing to you, because if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you'll come back for the next one, and maybe it might be a little more than a week or 10 days since I have a show coming up, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Please be sure to hit like, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you do in your shop that makes you work a little more efficiently, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.